Welcome to the weekend recap. It's simply Bitcoin. We break down the news from Twitter, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, websites by plebes or plebs, and some hardware releases when we get them. Anyways, drop us a like, subscribe. We're going to the numbers. Let's do it.
Number time!
At the time of this recording, the block height is 692,647. The Bitcoin price, 34,580. Chain rewrite days, 1,067. Total public lightning capacity, another all-time high, 1,983.98. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 5.50%. And sats per dollar was still below 3K, 2,892.
Dude. Bullish. I think that's an all-time high in Lightning, to be honest.
It is. So we're hopefully we're going to eclipse the 2K
very soon. You hear that, Satoshi? Satoshi's excited.
You might be coming. You might be joining us tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe the day after.
Dude, it's exciting, man. It's exciting. And then dude, it's crazy. We gotta rebound on the hash rate. We're starting to recover, and of course, the price is following that. Literally. Like science, but it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Good stuff. Overall, good numbers, but let's see what happens. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the daily fail. All right, so you know what? Surprisingly, this weekend was a little bit light on the fails, but we still, hey, look, there's going to be shitcoiners, so we're going to have fails, right? And we have fiat government, so there's going to be fails. Anyways, here we go. So here we go. Erik Vorhees, he was the one that didn't appreciate Nico's comments at the at Bitcoin conference 2021. They made him feel bad about being a shitcoiner. Cry harder. Anyways, those most gleeful about Thorchain's struggles are the maxis of Bitcoin and the maxis of Ethereum. Interesting. Those two groups should get a room. They'll be lifelong lovers. Yeah. See, because he's just a total shitcoiner. He makes money everywhere. So it's perfectly fine. He doesn't care what you trade, okay? Anyways, for the people that don't remember, right, or the people who didn't see the episode, we're talking about Thorchain, right? The estimated $7.6 million hack, and then after that, there was an $8 million hack. Erik. Look, what he doesn't understand is this, right? We're not being gleeful. Like, I'm not sitting here laughing at the people that lost their money. I'm not happy about the fact that they lost their money. I know exactly what that's like. I've lost my money in similar fashions a few years ago, and I learned my lessons. What we are here to say is that you don't need to go through that. You can skip through, that feeling of you're missing out, right? Because that's really what it is. Like, that's what gets people into shitcoining. Like, you sit there and you think, I'm missing out. I can tell you, every single person that I have met that got into Bitcoin, I don't care what price they got in at, every single one of them, whether it was $15, whether it was $30, whether it was $2,500 or $16,000, they all felt like they were missing out. Even at 60K, they felt like they were missing out. Okay? So it makes no difference. Everybody thinks they're late to the party. And the reality is that this is life-changing money. It's not just a party. And I think that's the big difference about Bitcoin and, amongst other things, right? And these shitcoins, right? Because these shitcoins are just circuses. And yeah, they're literally pumps and dumps. I've said this in the past, right? About the charts. You zoom out on the monthly charts, you'll see, right? It's just a bunch of flat lines with scam wicks back to flat lines.
I completely agree, dude. And I also think it's very insincere on his part. On May 11th, he literally tweeted, he's like, Thorchain liquidity pools are filling, decentralized, immutable cross-chain exchange in the future, right? So he's saying it's his own words, right? It says decentralized, immutable, right? But then a couple months later, the thing literally gets rug pulled. It literally the developers, the hackers, whatever, they just take the money out of the fucking coin. So it wasn't immutable, it wasn't decentralized. Vorhees was lying, right? So the question is he lying to pump his exchange, right? Or like, is he just a psychopath? Right? Like, I have no idea which one it is, dude. But this guy, and like, that's why he reacted the way that he reacted when I said that if you're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom of Bitcoin 2021. I really think that shit pisses him off because it's like, it's a dose of truth. He can't handle it either because he sold a fuck ton of Bitcoin to buy these shit coins, or because he's peddling this shit to, he owns an exchange. He owns Shapeshift. So I don't know which one it is, Phil.
Man, this guy just rent seeks from people getting scammed. Like that's what it is. I mean, come on. You know these tokens are never going to be money. Okay? When you're all the way at the top, I mean, look, it is the Cantillon effect, right? They're literally at the top of the money spigot. Of course they don't, like, I mean, of course he's going to sit there and support it and make it sound, like it's something legitimate. It's complete trash.
It's complete trash, man. It's fucked up, dude. And like, it's so funny though, because he got fucking ratioed. He got commented the fuck out on that tweet, dude. All the Bitcoiners are just going at him. So yeah, man, listen, that sucks, dude. And I bet you, dude, these are the types of people. Shitcoiners can't stand Bitcoiners, bro, because Bitcoiners just say the truth and the truth hurts. And they can't stand that shit. They can't defend it because it's like, we have the receipts. We have here what you said in the past, so you can't switch it on us, right? It's just stupid, man. But Erik Vorhees, dude, not good, bro. Not good, dude. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
All right, everybody. The meme for today is brought to us by a fellow plebe. You go follow him at Full Metal Hodl. That's a badass name, bro.
Yeah.
Wow. I've seen you so many times on Twitter, but I didn't realize you had the handle too. Okay. Awesome. Definitely go give him a follow. Very good at memes. But anyways, check it out. Thorchain's Erik Vorhees is the pleb.
Look at that, huh? Look at that.
That was a classic. Great. Shout out Full Metal Hodl. And because it's such a good meme, I'm going to give it a mushroom. What about you, Phil?
Wow. I like that. A mushroom, huh? Okay, fair score. You know what? I am going to go with... It's a tough one. But I'm going to go with charger to a vape.
Ooh.
Vape charger.
Have you seen my vape, Phil?
I haven't.
I lose my...
The first time you sent me that, I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, how is that even possible?
I lose my vape like 100 times a day, like I'm sure a lot of you do. And I always ask Phil, where is it? Even though we live hundreds of miles away from each other. I'm just making sure, you can never know. But
you know.
But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News, sponsored by
Crypto Cloaks. All right, everybody, we've been on top of this for the last 6 months, but now for the first time, it really looks like we've been saying that the battle lines between central bank digital currencies and Bitcoin is going to be more and more defined, and that's exactly what's happening. Now the mainstream media propaganda arm, right, is starting to release said articles. And again, this kind of mirrors the change in stance by the Fed. The Fed called Bitcoin, quote, a failed payment instrument, even though it's just adopted by El Salvador, literally a sovereign country, to essentially make it a currency. So, but the Fed is still saying it's a failed payment instrument, right? Clearly, they don't actually believe that. Clearly, they see Bitcoin as a risk, right? And again, this is also the European Central Bank. And of course, they're going to use the propaganda arm, which is the mainstream media, to, again, kind of defend that point, right? Here's an article by The Hill, bye Bitcoin. It's time to ban cryptocurrencies. I just want to read the first line and then we'll get to the article. I've never quite understood why cryptocurrencies are worth anything. You don't understand, but you're sure fast to give an opinion. And he says, how should governments respond to, of course, this has to do with the cyberware attacks, right? How should governments respond? Wolf argues that central banks should create their own official digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, and make cryptocurrencies illegal, right? Again, this is very financially privileged, right? You obviously come from a country, right, that, experiences relatively stable inflation, right? You obviously have services like Venmo, PayPal, right, where you could send money, and even still, you can't send money like Bitcoin allows you to send money. With Bitcoin, you could send money across the world without having to ask anyone for permission, right? But if you're a country like El Salvador and you're reading that article, man, shove it up your ass, because clearly El Salvador is using Bitcoin and Lightning Network to save potentially millions of dollars on remittance fees, right? So clearly, and he says it in the first line, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm still going to offer up an opinion, right? And again, it's not only The Hill. We also have an article by the New York Times essentially making the case as well, right? Cash will be obsolete soon. Will America be ready? And Niraj, kind of posted a screenshot of essentially some parts of the New York Times article that I want to read. A central bank digital currency can also be a useful tool. Typically, if the Federal Reserve wants to stimulate consumption and investment, it can cut interest rates and make cheap credit available. But if the economy is cratering and the Fed has already cut the short-term interest rate it controls to near zero, its options are limited. If cash were replaced with a digital dollar, however, the Fed could impose a negative interest rate by gradually shrinking the electronic balances in everyone's digital currency accounts. So if you have $100 over time, it's like $99, $98, because they want you to spend it. This is dystopian type shit, okay? Creating an incentive, right? It's an incentive. Creating an incentive for consumers to spend and for companies to invest. That only works if you don't have, to quote Christine Lagarde, if you don't have an escape valve. If you have an escape valve, this type of shit does not work because people are just going to opt out and go into Bitcoin. Yeah.
Imagine your account drains faster depending on who you transact with, right? So depending on the scores of the people that you transact with, all of a sudden, like, your quote unquote monetary privileges either raise or lower. Phil, they can do all kinds of weird shit, man.
I am so happy you said that. I'm so happy you said this, okay? Because this is going to bring me to my other point. Where do you think they get the central bank digital currency model from? Where do you think they get it from? Okay, because they're just not creating this out of thin air. No. They've already seen this working in China. China creates its own digital currency, and let's check out their privilege system. Again, these are not Phil's words. These are rewards and punishments. Citizens with high scores get to enjoy, quote, privileges, which those with low scores ultimately risk getting treated as second-class citizens. This is what central bank digital currencies is going to allow the government to do, right? So punishments can lead to denial of licenses, permits, and access to some social services, exclusion from booking flights or high-speed train tickets, less access to credit, restricted access to public services, and ineligibility for government jobs, no access to private schools, public shaming, right? But if you're a good citizen, right, you get tax breaks, you get fast track promotions, you get cheaper, right? This is a dystopian nightmare. Dystopian nightmare. And if you don't think this is coming to the West, we read it yesterday. On Friday's episode. No, I think it released on Saturday. We covered it. We showed you that they already are doing this privilege system of whether or not you got the vaccine or not. If you got the vaccine or not, you're allowed to go to certain places. And me and Phil were talking about this off camera before we started recording. Do you think governments are just going to stop? Do you think that if they get citizens to comply with that type of power, right, with that type of control from the government, do you think governments are just going to stop at that, right? Western elites have been captured and are literally intoxicated by the China model. We played you Charlie Munger's video the other day. He called Bitcoin disgusting, but he called the CCP amazing in their ways of doing things, right? So, man, it's absolutely terrifying. And there's two options here, right? And again, I'm gonna reiterate what I said before. The battle lines are a little bit obfuscated, but they're gonna get more and more defined. We have a future where you, the individual, is going to have to choose between slavery and freedom. And when I mean slavery, I mean central bank digital currencies, which is going to allow the governments to essentially dictate your life, because they're going to say, "Oh, we don't like you supporting this team. We didn't like that you didn't take the vaccine. We're going to cut you. We're going to raise your taxes," right? You're going to have that type of future, which is dystopian as shit, 1984 on steroids, or you're going to have a future of freedom, where you get to transact and do whatever the fuck you want, because that's what Bitcoin allows you to do, right? That's the future we're heading in, right? It's scary as fuck, right? But we're winning this, and the reason that I say we're winning this is because they wouldn't release those types of propaganda articles unless they thought they were losing. Like, unless they thought that Bitcoin was an actual risk. And if you look at both articles, they mention Bitcoin multiple times, and they keep re-emphasizing how it's a failure, how it allows, these ransomware companies to do whatever they want. Of course, they don't mention cash, because that's an inconvenient truth, right? But it's terrifying, Phil. Like, am I the only one to feel this way?
No, definitely not. I mean, that is scary as hell. And actually, one thing I found actually amusing was the fact that due to your credit score or due to these behaviors, you can get fast track promotions at work. So that's amazing. So that's a wonderful system, right? I definitely want a surgeon who got fast tracked, right, to doing like major heart surgery because he's really good with with money and like the people that he transacts with. That's really important. I'm sure that really helps me, like when you're on the operating table. Like this is, I mean, obviously I'm being facetious, right? Like that's like,
but you're not.
But at the same time, like that's the kind of shit that's happening, and like that sounds like a completely corrupt system that has nothing to do with talent or somebody's drive, right? Like I mean, their own drive for personal freedom or for wealth or whatever it is that they want. I mean, this just sounds like, hey, you play by these simple rules and you get to the top, and all these simple rules is follow blindly.
It's scary, man, and it creates puppets for the state, right? Because again, they want to have those privileges, right? So it's just scary, man. Is it like you reporting on your neighbor because you get more privileges? Like literally, man, it's like if you don't like, there's so many ways these things could get abused. It's just terrifying, right? And again, who gets to make the decisions, right? The political party in charge, right? The person that won the popularity contest, right? But what's the other option? The other option is allowing everyone, kind of works like freedom of speech, allowing anyone and anybody, doesn't matter your skin color, doesn't matter your religion, doesn't matter your creed, doesn't matter if you jaywalked across the street, to transact with anybody freely, right? That's what Bitcoin allows you to do. And again, I don't know whether these central bankers realize it or not, but they are the problem. Right? They are the problem. The problem is humans, right? As long as humans control the monetary policy, even if it starts with the best intentions, inevitably, it always gets corrupted, right? So Bitcoin fixes this. Bitcoin takes humans out of the monetary policy. It's rules without rulers, right? And again, I see some dark clouds on the horizon, and man, we are in it for a fight. But of course, we're going to cover it here on Simply Bitcoin. I'm going to end the episode with some good news. Right, Jamie Dimon's infamous 2017 Bitcoin takedowns still serves as a warning. This article came out in December 20th, 2019, right? Let's hear some of Jamie Dimon's opinions. He called Bitcoin a fraud. He said, quote, "It's worse than tulip bulbs. It won't end well. Someone is going to get killed." He also contended it's just not a real thing. Eventually, it will be closed. I'm going to read the last part. It's just not a real thing. Eventually, it will be closed. So obviously, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, obviously doesn't like Bitcoin that much. But check out this article that just came out, July 22nd, 2021. JP Morgan becomes the first bank to give retail clients access to Bitcoin. Let me read this last line once again. It's just not a real thing. He called Bitcoin a fraud. JP Morgan becomes the first big bank to give retail access to Bitcoin. Jamie Dimon, fuck you!
another person who eventually eats their words.
Can't resist the honey badger, bro. Can't. Okay, the incentives are just, man, you cannot beat the incentive structure of Bitcoin. It's going to fuck you up every time. Anyways, to read the article and then I'll shut up. JP Morgan just became the first U.S. bank, I love this part, just became the first U.S. bank to give retail clients access to Bitcoin exposure, effective July 19th. Contrary to other prominent banks, JP Morgan will reportedly not limit access to only ultra wealthy clients. See, this type of bullshit works in the fiat system. But guess what? Anybody could get exposure to Bitcoin. They don't need you anymore, right? So again, and this is why they're offering it to retail. They're not doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing it because they're scared they're going to get left behind. Yeah, sorry, Phil.
I'm sorry. I'd love to hear their pitch. I'd love to hear what their pitch is.
Actively managed, remember?
The customers know, but like how they explain Bitcoin, right? To keep somebody so scared and so like confused that, you should just manage this for me. Continue. I'm sorry.
No, bro, it's glorious. Soak it in. Jamie Dimon, how does it fucking feel, right? That kids, that are filming Simply Bitcoin in his underwear right now is more accurate than you are, motherfucker. Fuck you. But yeah, man, in all seriousness, look, it's the incentives, right? It's the same reason that El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender, right? It's you can't ignore Bitcoin when the number go up technology is working against you, right? There's only so long that you can ignore it because, again, your opponents, right, the people that you're competing with in business, eventually, if they adapt Bitcoin before you, you're at a big disadvantage, right? And you have to play catch up. So all the narratives and all the, all the positioning that you said, you're like, oh, it's a tulip bubble, it's a whatever, that works fine and dandy. But over time, Bitcoin humbles the fuck out of you, again, because number go up technology, the price keeps going up. So you end up looking like an idiot. You're losing opportunities for your customers, and your customers are looking at other banks and saying, hey, do you offer Bitcoin exposure? I'm going to go with you guys. JP Morgan is not a good bank, right? So again, you have Bitcoin strong arming, one of the biggest banks, right, in the world. And I'm sure Jamie Dimon was biting his tongue the entire time, like, the tulip. And then his executives were like, listen, if we don't offer this, we're going to get left behind, and he's like, okay, fine. So it's like, it's just funny. I hope someone asks him. If I ever see Jamie Dimon, I'm going to ask him, I'm going to wait like a decade or so, and then I'm going to ask him, and then I'm going to see how he feels. But yeah, man.
You know what? JP Morgan was wrong. Goldman Sachs was wrong. They were all wrong. And you know why? And you know why they were all wrong? Because Bitcoin has no masters. It just, they can't, like, look at what he said, right? It's going to be closed. What's going to be closed? What, who's closing what? There's nothing to close. It just doesn't make any sense. And you can see, right? Like their inability. I saw this other cringe tweet that you just made me think of this because we're talking about JP Morgan. But I saw this cringe tweet from, I think it was somebody who was quoting Warren Buffett about essentially how like checks are a form of money transfer and they're not worth anything. Like, like there's no value there. I'm doing a terrible job paraphrasing. But like really, you're comparing Bitcoin to a check. Like this is your move? Like with all of this intense knowledge of like of value and price to earnings ratios and all of this stuff, this is the move? Man, these guys are weak. I mean, this is weak stuff. Like we're not even, it's like I'm not that bright. So it's like if I'm able to sit there and Google a lot of this information and figure it out for myself, like you guys must be doing nothing. So.
Dude, it's almost as if they can't comprehend, they can't understand that Bitcoin is this open, decentralized system. I think that they're used to taking on a centralized system and they're like, we could do better than they do. But I don't think they're used to dealing with something, right? Like we just had a 50% hash rate drop because China banned Bitcoin mining and the Bitcoin network kept working like nothing happened. Blocks came in a little bit slower until the difficulty adjustment. I don't think they understand what they're up against. I don't think, and it also, and I've said this many times, it requires a special type of humility, right? And if you're working in that sector, right, again, you're very close to the money spigot, right? So you're benefiting. You must think you're the shit in society, right? You don't understand how this, essentially this open currency that was developed by this anonymous person could be taking over the world. It must be very difficult for you. And again, like you see this in finance guys, right? They're the last people to fully appreciate Bitcoin because they're so used to being at the top of the hierarchy in the fiat system. So yeah, very interesting, and I'm sure these fails are just going to keep accumulating because that's what NGU technology does. But anyways, Phil, there was a software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases. We've got LND version 0.13.1, and that is a Lightning implementation, and that is down below in the show notes. Check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. All right, guys, that was our show. You know what to do. If you enjoyed the show, smash that like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the catastrophic fiat and shitcoin fails and the Bitcoin news from the plip perspective, definitely consider subscribing. And we will see you tomorrow for another episode of Simply Bitcoin.